something that always stuck out with me with Jacob and Esau. And it was that it was always God's plan. Everything about this story, every single bit of it was God's plan. But it never seems like it's going to work out. You know what I mean? Yes, sir.
Before you get into that part,
Uh-huh.
which I found it extremely interesting in chapter 26, verse 5. And a lot of times we think about the commandments and everything that was given to Moses and all this, and like, but right here, all this is because Abraham heeded what I said and did what I told him to do. He followed my mitzvot, my regulations, and my teaching.
We actually go to Genesis 18 and 19. It says, "Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord, to do my justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he has spoken of him." So, I mean, it's the fulfillment. You're right. It's all because of what Abraham did. So,
He didn't have anything written down. There was communication going on. There was an understanding of right and wrong, clean and unclean. All of this
right.
at that point in time is quite often people today don't really see that this is something that's been going on way before they had God give them the commandments at Sinai.
Sure.
That was the point that I found that stood out.
Yeah, and it actually goes back to Noah,
Oh, yeah,
because he was told to take
that is a,
7 pairs of the clean and set 2 pairs or 1 pair of the unclean
Well,
animals.
let's back it up. It actually goes back to Adam.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's when we're looking at that, we can actually go that way to what our parents did. If you want to look at it. Why are you here? Because your parents decided. You know what I mean?
well, actually, God decided.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. But that's just it. It's if we want to look at that, it's because of what happened before. It's the after consequence is what happened before. So when we look at that, that also actually plays into what I'm talking about though with Jacob and Esau. When we look at the story of Jacob and Esau, it never once looked like it's going to work out. You know, because God lays it out way beforehand. There's going to be 2 nations in your belly. And the thing is that they will not get along, and the older one will serve the younger. God lays that out. Did anybody else lay that out? No. I mean, that was God. And why did he lay that out? What?
To prepare.
Exactly. She asked. She's going, God, what is this? You know? She was barren first off. And so Isaac goes and he's pleading with God on her behalf because she's barren. And so he's pleading with God, please give us a prodigy. Give us that blessing that you've already laid out is supposed to come our way. Right? Because he knows what Abraham was given as far as a blessing, right? Or, I mean, is everybody under that same kind of thought process? I am. I think that because of the way the hierarchy worked in the families, like Abraham, we know he was a great and mighty man. He had a nation unto himself at that time, right? Okay? So when he had a nation unto himself, he was what to the family? He was the high priest of his family. Okay? Patriarch, right. Now he was also the landowner. He was also, all those things were in his purview. Okay?
So he is a picture of Yahweh.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He is definitely a picture of the Father. Now, Randy Kay and I actually had a discussion this week, about that kind of issue, and I'll get to that in a minute. But keep in mind with what we're going on there. But when you have the patriarch of the family, and the patriarch of the family is actually in God's good graces, okay? What does it say in 18:18 and 19? He shall teach his children all my justice and judgments. Okay? So he's laying out automatically that this is going to be something that he passes on to the next generation. So Isaac knows this. He knows this. So he goes and he entreats the Lord. He says, Lord, please, I know that this is in your will. Please just let my wife not be barren anymore. Yes, sir.
I think it's also a picture of sort of like that second chance to do it right and not try and do it under your own power like his father Abraham and Sarah did.
Okay, right?
You know?
Okay.
And he came, instead of Rebecca coming to him saying, hey, take my servant
Right.
and let's try and do this. No, he being the head said, no, let me go to God and entreat him based on what I know he said he would promise.
Right. Okay. No, you're right. I can see that definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Why was she barren? Isaac's wife.
It doesn't actually say. So,
Speculate.
The house of Laban was serving foreign
multiple
gods.
gods. Right.
And she also identified with those foreign gods because when she left, she took them with her. And she
No, that's-
protected
No,
them.
that's
Rachel.
You're thinking of
That's
Rachel.
the next generation.
Next generation.
That's
Okay.
next generation.
She was barren also.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
See?
She came from them. I
Right.
understand what he's
But
saying.
the only reason that I'm going to throw a little bit different aspect on this because of Rebecca is that Rebecca identified with Abimelech. No, Abraham's Eleazar. I'm sorry. She identified with Eleazar. She saw the blessing. She saw that it was in God's command, and she said, "No, I'm leaving this behind, and I'm going with you." So that's the only reason that
Because they wanted her to stay.
yeah, because they
Right.
wanted her to stay, even if it was just for a little while.
Mhm.
It's that little bit more chance of an influence, and she even recognized that and said, "No, I'm leaving." Yes.
And she was, in the beginning, Laman, he saw the gifts and everything.
Oh,
So
yeah.
she was raised like that.
Oh, sure,
So
absolutely.
she was, she was saying, hey, there's more for me, bye.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know?
Hey,
Because she went, she was a younger girl.
absolutely,
She went.
absolutely.
She was already in that mind state.
Sure,
Materialistic.
sure. But there again, she was also a servant. She was also had a servant's heart. The only way that God was going to make sure that it worked out for Eleazar was that if she let down her drinking water and then went and filled up for the camels. And I don't know if y'all have ever heard the study of how much a camel could drink, okay? But we're talking about at least 100 gallons.
Takes 30 minutes to drink.
At least 100 gallons.
And those water vessels that they carried could hold up to 30 gallons of water.
Well, and yeah, and there again, you're looking at the cisterns. And the cistern was down in the ground. It's actually, walking down this hill, going down to the water, picking it up, and coming all the way back up. So anyway, we can get into all that later, but let's go back to the portion here. So, when we're looking at this, God lays it out. She asked, she's going, God, why is there so much turmoil going on? And he goes, this is my plan, here it is. And he lays it out to her. This is also where I start to see Isaac isn't necessarily following direction. Okay? Because why is it that Isaac doesn't see that, why does he start to go blind? Why is it that he's the one that is the patriarch of the family now, and he's missing the boat completely? Hold on 1 second. Just let that sink in for a second. Why is that? If he knows that he can go and entreat God, he knows that he's going to bring about God's fruition of the plan. Okay, he knows that he's a part of it. Yet he misses it.
Humility.
He missed it back whenever he let his mother convince him to be a liar and a cheat.
Okay. Okay. Well, But, yeah, we're talking about two different people though.
Yeah.
That's Jacob. We're talking about Isaac. Why does Isaac start to lose? I'm just throwing out, you know, because,
It says that he favored Esau because Esau was a hunter.
right,
So if you have a favorite, it can definitely color the way you parent, it can color the way you, everything.
sure, sure. But the way that it describes Esau, he was a hunter, but he was a worldly man.
Leaders of the world.
He was of the world, yes, sir.
Isaac's main concern was his belly.
Uh-huh.
Even nearly in his death, he wanted-
Esau.
No, that's
Esau.
Esau.
Well, even Isaac too.
Isaac.
Isaac too is like, oh, I'm about to give a blessing. I'm about to die. And the last thing that I want you to feed me. So I'm with you, absolutely. He was all about himself at that point. It was all about himself. But he was also, by that point, blind. And we know that spiritual blindness is manifested in what? Physical blindness. Yes.
The other day I was at that, conference up in Albuquerque, and there was 2 points that were brought out, which I thought was somewhat interesting on this. One of them being, what is one of the highest forms of worship? And there were 2 of them that they brought out. One of them is what we're doing right here, studying, learning, getting into the Word. The more that we learn, the better our relationship can be with God, the better that we can treat each other. So learning and studying God's Word is one form of worship, praising God on that. The other one, back during the temple time, now this is their opinion, still got, I hadn't researched this to the nth degree, but they said eating, communing together, eating together.
Breaking
was
bread together,
Also,
yeah.
This is the feast, this is our holidays. This is a time that he's wanting to commune with his son.
Right.
So, yes, he's hungry, but this is also a time of togetherness. on
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
So, that's what I want to bring up.
Yeah, and, Jacob, or Isaac asked Esau to bring him food.
Right, Dennis.
It was not a family meal, this was a father's son.
Right.
Well, did he even eat with him?
Yeah.
Oh, they did?
Well, no,
No.
he didn't eat with.
Not
He
with
didn't
Esau.
actually eat with Esau.
No.
He just ate with Jacob. Now,
Right, right.
here's all right. So going back to progression here, okay? All right. So going a little bit further, we're talking about the fact that there's a famine going on in the land, right?
Yeah, this is good.
There's a famine going on in the land.
Second.
The second famine.
Right.
All right, which that's interesting that when we look at Abraham's life, how much of the famine is talked about?
Of Abraham?
Of Abraham.
Oh, just them when he went into Egypt.
That's right. I mean, it's only a cause to move him to go to Egypt, right? I mean, that was the only instance we actually get of it. But if he's talking about this is the second famine, besides the first famine that was in the days of Abraham, this is kind of how they're doing their timeline, okay? And things are done by events over in the Eastern mindset. Things are done by events. They're not done by a measure of dates, okay? You find a date by the event. Does that make sense? Okay? And this is what's going on. He's laying out that this very first famine that not only probably destroyed a large majority of that land and killed all the crops and probably killed a lot of people, that drove the Abraham down into Egypt, but now it's here again.
Global warming.
Yeah.
What is it that Jacob does?
Jacob
Jacob does. What does he do for profession or for livelihood or for?
He's in the tents.
He's a shepherd.
He studies,
Keeper of his house.
He was a gardener too.
He was a gardener.
he was just a homie when he
Yeah.
He
He
could
stayed
go-
around the house and he was farming. Okay.
You know, I go back into the 1929s, you know, in the Depression, and people, they came in there and killed all the livestock, cows and things that were eatable
Uh-huh.
at that time, you know. And we canned the meat, I think, quarts and gallons.
Sure. Sure.
Just to have meat to eat, and we canned meat for a couple of years there.
I understand. My grandparents went through it, and we had canned meat until the day they died, and that was just kind of how it was done because you didn't, you know. I get that mindset, but Isaac, okay. The reason I'm trying to bring out what are the two sons doing, okay? Do they do the same thing?
No.
No, not whatsoever. Not whatsoever, okay? One is, he is the mama's boy that stays around the tent. He's a plain man, and he actually works the ground, okay? Which this is the second mention of, huh? What?
Sort of like, you may be going there right now, sort of like Cain and Abel.
Yes, okay? That's where I'm going exactly. Because, here's the thing. He works the ground. The other one is a man of means. He works wildlife and he hunts and all that kind of stuff, right? Who has God's favor?
Whoever works the ground.
Whoever works the ground. Why? Because the ground
That's what he gave to provide.
is what he gives as provision. That's the provision. The ground is. Okay?
The land.
That's right. Because we look at the land, what does the land get every 7 years, or supposed to get every 7 years? It's supposed to get a rest. Is there anything in here that says an animal is supposed to get a rest? Just on the Shabbat. But it's not something that is laid out per animal, right? I mean, do you tell a dog, okay, today
Sit.
you got to sit down.
Yes.
No excess licking.
No jumping around.
No jumping around. You
Nope.
can't.
No playing with the chew toy.
You can't chew on the goats or on the kittens. Hi guys, come on in.
Hey,
Even the animals were supposed to get a rest,
That-
because the cold mountain
Absolutely,
had to pull them out when they were leaving.
sure. Well,
They would
and
die.
I'm not disputing that, but we're talking about the land, okay? The land that I live on, it's dirty, okay? We live on 5 acres outside of Smyrna, and it's dirt. Do you think of the ground, the dirt, as a living creature, or as a living? I really don't. That's just me. Maybe it's because I'm ignorant in that fact. But my wife tills the ground, and she's gotten a huge bounty from it, okay? But when we look at the blessing that's been given, and we go all the way back to the first of Genesis, what is blessed? Is it the animals
The land.
or the land?
The land.
It's the land.
well, and what did he charge Adam to do? Take care of the garden.
Yeah.
That's what I'm putting you here for.
That's
Take
right.
care of the
And
garden.
then what was the first curse?
The animal.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. Yes, sir.
And then, I think what Deanna and I thought you were getting at, where he shows great blessing is when Isaac sows, and then he reaps 100 times what's sown
In that year.
That year. But this was during a famine.
Right.
And so, no wonder that very next sentence where people are like, no wonder God is with you. I mean, he sowed, he reaped 100 times during a famine.
I was going there, but I'm not as smart and fast as you guys, so just bear with me, okay?
I'm just
So,
saying he shows blessing through the land. That's
right,
what-
absolutely. Okay, so he does show the blessing through the land. But here's the thing. Who is it that Isaac favors? Esau. Does he do the same thing that Isaac did?
No.
No. It's kind of strange, isn't it? I mean, think about it. It's kind of strange because what normally happens, if you look at families, especially a few years back, you know, if a father was a blacksmith, what was the son usually? A blacksmith. Okay,
Especially
And-
the firstborn.
right, especially the firstborn. It was a pride issue almost that I'm going to pass on my knowledge base to my son. Okay, I'm going to pass on this form of a blessing to my son because it's a profession, it's a way of living, it's a way of doing those things. Isaac already knows that he's blessed. I mean, he reaps 100 times in a famine in the land, okay? He already knows that he's blessed, and then he doesn't actually look at that son as being, you know, the one he wants to really work with.
Well, and it's interesting that you would think that Rebecca would have shared with him what God said.
Sure.
Now, maybe she didn't, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know many pregnant women that don't share with their husbands, you know, things going on.
Especially a
in
vision
pregnancy.
from God.
Right.
You know, that's kind of one of those things, you know. We
So-
do think y'all get a little hormonal and crazy, but at the same time, we'd probably listen to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just interesting that if she had told him that he didn't operate in that direction, because later we see Jacob having to barter for the birthright.
Right.
That should have been given to him. He shouldn't have had to barter for that. Why
Right.
was it given to Esau? So there again, I see your point with Isaac. You know, somewhere along the way, he chose his way.
That's right. And he starts a clear division. I mean, it actually states it. He starts a clear division because the first thing is that he favors his son. Okay? Abraham, did he show favoritism to one son over the other?
Yes.
When did he show favoritism to one son or the other?
I think first.
When God told him. He showed favoritism only when God
He loved
said,
Ishmael.
this is the one. He loved
He
Ishmael.
loved Ishmael. He had 13 years before Jacob
Absolutely.
was even born. He loved him, man.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the banquet feast as soon as he was born. My goodness. There probably wasn't anything like it to that time.
Well,
And
then
he,
still
when
had
he
a
married
whole
or
lot of
whatever, had other women, other kids, he sent them away, but Ishmael and they were
Right.
still there.
They were still right
They
there.
were like, still
Absolutely.
there. The other ones were gone.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm bringing that point out though that there may have been a little bit more of a directional. Okay, well this is where the birthright goes. This is where the blessing goes. But it was only after God said, "This isn't right. This is right." That's when it happens.
You know, it's interesting because he says, my ways are not your ways.
Uh,
Well, we know that for the most part, the double portion always goes to the firstborn. And yet, continually, and I think the case can even be made, even from his first son, Hasatan, he actually gives the double blessing to his second son, you know, in a sense of establishing that pattern is, no, I'm sorry, yeah, this is going to be the firstborn, but the blessing is going to go to the second son. You know, it's going to go for whatever reason. I mean, I'm sure we could probably actually discern a reason eventually in his pattern, but his ways are not.
it's because of that statement right there. It's because it doesn't make a whole lot of physical sense. I mean, because you think about it, your firstborn son, that's where you go, okay, firstborn, that means a little bit more important as far as passing on the lineage, right? That's what what comes up in your mind, but that's not what he points out all the way back at Cain and Abel. And then we move on and move on and move on and move on and move on. It never works out to where it's that firstborn son who actually gets the first blessing or the full blessing.
And I think that shows sin of the fathers, because they weren't investing in their firstborn. You know, you look at Isaac, well, he wasn't investing in, or he was investing in Esau, but in a worldly way.
Sure.
He wasn't investing in the one that he was supposed to be.
Right.
And then you look at Jacob, when he had his 12, I mean, he should have been investing in Reuben. Apparently that didn't happen.
Right. Right. Well,
But Yeshua was the firstborn also. He can't always be the secondborn. The firstborn can sometimes be the heir also.
but there again, that was the firstborn of Mary. It wasn't the firstborn of Yahweh. Because he wasn't. He wasn't the firstborn of Yahweh. We know that. And I mean, you know, if you look at it in the picture form, you're actually seeing a pattern here. And the pattern that lays out to me is that it's always got to be in God's will. Just has to.
I explain why you're saying that Yeshua is not the firstborn of God.
Well, I mean, because when we look at who was given first dominion of the earth,
But we know that Yeshua is God, so he was there first, so
Oh.
he was even there before.
well, yeah, all right. Then let me rephrase that. As far as we know that the sons of God, okay,
Sons of God.
sons of God, all right. If we're actually just breaking that up into the sons of God, you're really pulling a differentiation of what Yeshua was versus Hasatan versus the angels versus what we are. That's not a conversation I'm ready for. I don't know about you guys, but that's not something I can really do. But I get the point, and I get what you're saying there as far as that goes. So forgive me that I wasn't really getting at that. I'm just getting on the fact that we look at the picture of him coming to earth, okay, and we look at Yeshua coming to earth, and he was God in flesh, right? He was God in the flesh. And he was the Word in the flesh. And where was his beginning? Well, at the beginning, you know. And where's his end? Well, it's at the end. So, you know, right. Now, but we actually look at what came before his diminutive role. Does that make sense?
And there is someone in dominion right now
Right.
prior to his receiving, if you will, his birthright.
Absolutely. Because he doesn't receive the kingdom yet. Is he in a kingly role yet? No. He's in the priestly role right now.
The Holy Spirit's out gathering the bride.
Sure. So
There's that picture again.
So it hadn't come to fruition yet because there was someone else in power. And that's the way it was laid out. Okay? So, going back. All right. Now we're talking about, let's move on just a little bit. Okay. This is actually where we start to see in actual word form the first mention of someone going blind. Okay? First mention of someone going blind, chapter 27. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau, his eldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here I am. And he said, Behold now, I am old, I know not the day of my death. Now therefore, take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver and thy bow, and go out to the field and take me some venison. Okay. We just talked about the progression of why he probably went blind. Because he's stepping out of God's will. Okay? Showing favoritism to the son that God didn't pick. And so he's going blind. Do what?
Almost like he didn't know that Esau and Isaac had made a vow between themselves.
Sure. Right, well, absolutely. I don't think he did know. I bet he didn't. I bet he had no idea that Esau gave up the birthright. You know, but here's the thing. Even if he didn't, he's not talking about the birthright here yet. He's talking about the blessing. There's two different things, and I didn't realize this until actually going through it again.